Hola, mi gente. Welcome to Ms. Malcolm Hughes, the podcast where I share lessons I have learned the hard way so that you don't have to. Our topic of today is not being afraid to start over. It's a new year, first day of 2020. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the other side. And to kick off the new year the right way, we're going to discuss not being afraid to start over, not holding on to your past and allowing it to dictate what this year will be for you and who you will become, not just this year, not just this decade, but for the rest of your days. I know change for many is frightening and also causes people to lock up, but I think that a new year is always a beautiful and inspiring time. So, what would you like to see different in your life, right? And I think when we think about change, it's also extremely important to not only determine what you would like to come as a result, but also to figure out what's the best and worst case scenario, right? If you make this change, you make this shift, you alter something, what could be the best or worst thing to happen, and whether or not you're willing to live with that. I personally think that's what makes all the difference. Whenever I'm making a significant change in my life, and let me tell you, 2019 was a hard year. It was a hard ass year. I don't know anyone who 2019 did not slap around, knock down, pick them back up, and knock them down again. Um, so I know a lot of my desires and goals for this year are to just get realigned and step back into my purpose. Because 2019 was a year I feel like I really stepped out of it and I felt like I was drowning all year. So this year, my top goals, I believe, are to, just get back aligned in my purpose of what I know I'm supposed to be doing. And a part of that work is to help people on their journeys and with their purpose and destinies as well. So that's why I started this podcast, and that's why we're talking about change and transformation today. So I would say after you've determined the best and worst case scenario and you've figured out, yeah, I can live with that no matter what happens, right? If this best thing happens, if this worst thing happens. And I think it's important to analyze that because if you sat down and you figured out the best and worst case scenario, then anything in the middle you'll be able to withstand. So, step zero, figure out what it is you want. Step one, figure out best and worst case scenario and whether or not you can live with that. And then step two, I always say backwards map, right? Like people are like, figure out a plan. I concur, but I think that backwards mapping is a good tool that's always worked for me, and I encourage it for other people. And what I mean by that is, where are you hoping to go, right? Like, what's your larger picture? And I think once you have that solidified, you can then sit back and figure out, okay, so this is where I'm desiring to be, and this is where I am today. So, what do I need to have in place in order to get there, right? You're able to analyze the gap and the distance between the two. And I think when you're backwards mapping, it's extremely important to figure out what are the intervals, right? Like in 3 months, I want to have this done. In 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, depending how long your plan is for change and transformation and what you're hoping to do and achieve within a period of time, within a span of time. So you can figure out your interval steps. You can figure out who is needed to help you get there. I know we all sometimes like to think we're an army and an island to ourselves, but we're not. None of us do anything completely alone. You, of course, are the charging force. You're leading everything else, but there are people, or there should be people, or you will need people to propel you and sustain you on your journey. So, who can help you? Whether this is family and friends that you already have, whether it's someone within your wider net who has skill sets that you can tap into, or whether or not it's individuals that you don't have in your circle and that you don't have access to. And then how do you determine how to get access to these individuals, how to meet these individuals, right? And I think that when you're reflecting on that, I think it's important to figure out what skills these people will be bringing to the table, and then how do you put yourself in spaces and situations to meet them. I think that's extremely important. And we can talk about that in much more detail as well, depending on your particular situation and what you're hoping to achieve. There's a myriad of ways to go about meeting and navigating and interacting with people that can help you on your journey. I'll just give one example here. You can also send emails to msmalcolmhughes@gmail.com, and I will gladly answer any questions that you all may have. And if enough of you want it, I can definitely go into more detail on a future podcast. But for instance, let's say you want to be a writer. Let's say this year you want to become a writer, you want to take your writing more seriously. I think it's always extremely helpful to go online and figure out what writer resources are available in your area. So whether that's free writing workshops, whether that's writing meetups, whether that's classes that are offered at a university, and not as a student, often universities will have classes that are available to non-students, one-offs. So it's not like you're registering for a complete semester or an actual program. Writing programs that offer individual classes, or sometimes you can go online and take classes that way. But I think that also looking into maybe open mics and other things of that nature to really figure out who are the writers in your area, what are the resources that are being provided, and then putting yourself in those situations, putting your work out there, going out and meeting these people, reaching out to folks you know who are doing the work. I think oftentimes we may be afraid of that, but most times you reach out to people, you realize they're just people and they want to help you as well. So ask. And the worst that someone can tell you is no. And I know sometimes that's really frightening and overwhelming. But once you understand that the worst that someone can say is no, and the best that they can say is yes, again, worst and best case scenario, then you're really situating yourself in a position to be able to withstand whatever they say. And if they say no, then that just may not be the person, or it may not be the time, but you still attempted to make that connection, and it's still pushing you toward your goals. So that's one thing when you're making changes, or when you're desiring to shift and alter your life and your world. I think it's important to realize that energy doesn't die, right? So as you're putting that out there into the world, the universe is responding, and you're building strength within yourself to accept the no's, because we will all receive no's in life, right? But that shouldn't stop you. And if it does stop you, then I think it's important to sit and question whether or not this is something you truly want. And if you do want it, then how deeply do you desire it, right? Because I think that sometimes we all get knocked down, but it's not important whether or not you get knocked down. It's important if you stay down, or if you choose to get back up and try again. I think that makes all the difference with success. So yeah, I just wanted to come in and just really give some hope and some advice in 2020 as we're all moving forward in January and determining what do we want this day, this month, this year, and this decade to mean for our lives and our journeys, and who we hope to become. So as you do that, I hope that you really question what's in your heart's purest desires, and position yourself in such a way that no matter what comes your way, you can withstand, right? Best or worst case scenario, you will be able to continue and to move forward and continue to persevere. That's just some quick tips I have on how to make changes and starting over and creating the life that you desire. Until next time, as always, please remember that a single word can change a life, and a single smile can change a day. So be kind.